the cheating way again. Read the ones they handed me and see if anything happens. Inside of one man's head is a terribly small place to live. Unless you're your own thinker, then it's not so bad. If we were ordinary, if that was ordinary news, which is obviously not ordinary news, or we'd be on the network, wouldn't we? We'd be sponsored and all that. We'd have ratings. Well, we had them once, if you recall, but somebody misspelled it and it came out ratings. If it was ordinary, you could say that inside of one man's head is a terribly small place to live, and you would have many city thinkers who would agree to that. In fact, certain men would claim that that was a very up-to-date observation, and could even point out that it had certain pathological connotations because a man can live too much in his head and drive himself nutso. The great, as they say in Alabama, the great Edie Feeks. I got to quit thinking, which is kind of funny to think about. We all know that they mean something else. They mean it more specifically. All right, back to what I was going to try and consider, or get you to consider. It would be relatively sane, expected that ordinary people, if we threw this news item on them, would go, well, that can be true. And it does not really have to be to the level of it being ill-producing. That is, it does not really have to be a form of neurosis. It's just almost all ordinary people will say, well, sometimes something will get on my mind. I get mistreated, I get cheated, or just something will go on my mind, and I just think about it over and over, and I can't seem to break loose, and I'll even want to sit around and just almost torture myself, and I think, this is not doing me any good, etc. But consider it another way. To live living inside of one man's head is a terribly small place. Or inside one man's head is a terribly small place to live. Now consider that when you're ordinary and you're running in the collective herd of humanity, perforce, you're not an original thinker by the definition. And so, ta-dam, you're living in someone's head, except this case, from another view, it's even worse because it's not even your head. A little music always seems to help. I don't know why. I don't know why some of these churches, have never learned that. Some have, and some, well. If you're part of the collective intelligence of humanity, if you're just an ordinary, right-thinking, civilized, sophisticated, blah, blah, blah person, and you are by all good definitions approaching anything that might be objective, you're non-original, you're a Philistine, you're a plagiarist. If you're educated, we've been through this, you're a plagiarist. That's what education is. And it's not an attack on humanity, it is simply that which will keep a man enough to where he can stumble bum his way through life, right? Half dazed, half asleep, no great effort, after about the age of, pick it out, whatever makes you feel the least bad. Nowadays somewhere probably between 15 and 18. And after that. So, if you're at that level, you may be educated and you may have awards and etc. and degrees. But do understand, if you're not, whatever this might be, if you're not thinking for yourself, and you would know it, you're living inside someone's head. Now it can, to be a little more exact verbally, pardon me, you could say that it shifts on a constant basis. You could be living in one person's head, such as you could be discussing something with someone in the office, and you begin to go into your rant and rave about what's going to happen to Kyrgyzstan now that we have these certain unpleasantness arising again in Mother Russia itself, and you're living inside the head of George Will or somebody. I don't know whoever you read as a reporter out of a magazine today, a reporter from a newspaper. You're living in his head right then. And you could appear then a few minutes later, just almost instantly, but just pick out your own time frame, you could apparently be living in a wider, more expansive philosophical area and begin to not only discuss what appears to be the immediate political ramifications of what's going on in parts of the world, but you could go, you know, Fred, it's more than just the day-by-day intrigues in the body politic. It has to do, I don't know, with the cultural, perhaps the psychological makeup of man and the way in which we struggle to come to grips with the interpersonal relations between various groups of people. And I don't know who we're going to pick out. Let's say that you're vaguely living inside the head of some of the unknown writers of the Old Testament, or some of the Hindu Vedic literature. You're living inside of someone else's head. Now it can pass. One more time, we've established this through the news lately. You've got to be able to see at the ordinary level you can, without any doubt, pass for being extremely insightful, intelligent. In fact, at that level, that's the only way you can, because if you're living in a herd, anything other than a moo is an anomaly. And if it's too far removed from a moo, it's just cacophony. It is noise. It is chaos, and you don't even hear it. So at the best you can do with a herd, it's got to be whatever the most up-to-date inflections, connotations that go with a moo. And at any given time, there are, as you know, the truth and the soft sense with the social sciences and et cetera. Did anybody like that definition of social sciences? I don't. We won't go into that. The truth, reality, morality shifts. It changes, and there's not any doubt. And so there would be some way, if you were trying to pass yourself off as being up to date, there would be a certain kind of mooing that should be going on, of course. But you do understand that anything that is foreign to that language is, shall we say, foreign to that language. It's going to be meaningless. So the best you can do, if you're living in the herd, you're passing for being sane, you're thinking with no great effort, you're staggering downhill, as people are wont to do, intellectually. Oh, no. Don't tell me, no, wait a minute, I'm going to a gym. Intellectually. Stumbling down. You are living inside of someone else's head. And back to the news item, since it seemed to have gotten some laughing reaction from you. Inside of one man's head is a terribly small place to live. And you can go, boy, how true. And you could take my attempted analyzation, if you hadn't already done on your own, about, yes, it is true. If you go around just living in your own head and you've got that kind of limited perception of life, and all you do is keep running around the same ideas, the same old political viewpoints, the same old moralistic stances you've had forever, boy, it can be small. It can be goddamn confining. I believe that. And then they can say, in fact, I struggle against that. I'm taking night courses. I belong to a paperback philosophical quality book club. They send me a book on philosophy. Oh, hell, a couple of times, 3 or 4, maybe 6 times a year. I don't know, I'm behind. But anyway, I get them. The point being is that someone, well, in all good faith, in the same way that they would, at the lower level, be saying that they go to a gym and trying not to die before they die, they would be trying to say, well, intellectually, that news item does have some validity, and against the reality of that, I do struggle. But how are they struggling? They're trying to read the writings. They're trying to pick up the moves of other cows. And so although you could get a man, if he would sit still for that picturization for a second and say, well, that is true. It's living inside one man's head, that's a small place to live. You should expand your intellectual horizons, etc. But where do you expand them? You expand them into the terribly small area of some other man's head. And all the people with small heads went, that's enough of that. Would you move on? All right. Hell, I can take a hint. No need to get pushy, sir. I'll go on to another item. Is that your head, or do you have a pimple on your collar? Speaking of small heads, I know you do that too much and people kind of like they're trying to blow their head up. They go. Guess that could be one explanation for going bald on top. Well, fill in your own. Well, in fact, wait, if you didn't fill in your own, my brains are such that it is beginning to put stress on my cranial capacity, and it's stretching, and that's the only reason that you see some of my scalp showing through. I wasn't going to fill it in for you, but this one, I believe, may be connected. If it's not, then God knows what in the hell this is connected with, but here it goes. It's another page they pulled out. It says, looking to the collective for possible usable escape information is sort of like seeking dental care from heavy equipment operators. I guess whoever wrote this thought that was almost a funny picturization, that if you wanted root canal work, something delicate, that's got that kind of real piercing, delicate pain to it. That, if there's one person you would not go pick out, besides your Uncle Charlie, who would it be that you would just think, well, if I wanted to save a few bucks or just do it in a new way, what would I do? Go find a backhoe operator, a guy driving a bulldozer, and ask him, huh? But after that, second part of the news item, it says, hey, I assume directed toward the audience, the viewers, it says, no need to scoff and smirk. You've done it. I would suggest to us that part of the key to, hey, you've done it, is in the opening line of looking to the collective for, you can put in blanks, ellipses. In this case, it says for usable escape information. Looking to the collective for anything that will help you escape from your own thinking. A cow looking for any other cow, no matter what kind of cow. A sheep looking to any other bovid, no matter how many, pardon the expression, sheepskins it had on its wall. What are you going to get from it? Dental care. Yes, but I came here to have my nails done. I'm sorry, sir, we're going to have to extract a tooth. Well, how about maybe just a haircut? No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All right, root canal. If you go to the collective, you can say, well, I'm seeking such and such. That's a great thing about being a grown person and having a tongue and lips, is you can say that. You can say, I am here seeking so-and-so. And the collective, being life itself, well, it's life's local representative for those of you that enjoy Tupperware parties. You can go to the intellectual, the collective intelligence of humanity and say to it. It can be in the guise of an institution, that is the collective intelligence. It can be in the guise of your parents, a priest, a rabbi, a psychologist. You can go to the collective intelligence of humanity with any request you have. It's just a variation of the fact that the ordinary never stuck for an answer. We've already established that, especially with Gesture 12. The variation, like the other side of that dance team, is they are never stuck either. So no matter whatever you go to request, whatever inquiry, whatever supplication you have in the non-religious sense, perhaps, to any aspect of the collective intelligence, what will it say? Well, besides wanting a down payment, but make sure you got a credit. What will it say? It will say, certainly. If it's not, it is an institution that's about to come apart. It is a Fruit Loop institution. It is an institution without portfolio, it's not an institution, is the point. Now, so if I drove it against the wall enough, you would. If you go seeking information from the collective on whatever subject, if it is, of course, sane from their view, if it is part of the collective interest of life itself, contemporaneous to where and when you are, if you go seek information, you will not be turned away on the basis of, oh my God, no one here, there's not a cow on this planet, there's not a cow to our knowledge that has the least idea about that. Yeah, hold your breath. Go to any decent, law-abiding, reasonable, civilized institution, any spokesperson for the collective intelligence of man, and say, well, what I'd like to know is the secret of life. Let me just try and figure out the worst. Either that or what in the hell is one shoe doing still in the highway? And what have you considered the pressing questions plaguing the soul of man? If you go to the reasonable spokesman, mouthpieces of life, the collective intelligence of life, you do not get confronted with, oh, we got no idea whatsoever. Now, operationally speaking, as we all know, that is the end result. But you are not going to be confronted by going to life, going to the collective, back to the news item, looking to the collective for usable escape information. If you go to life, if you go to the herd and say, you know, at times, no offense, but at times I feel like I sure would like to get away from the rest of you people. I mean, the rest of you cows. Is there any way I can get out of here? And you turn around to any reasonable spokesperson, or maybe just your mother cow next to you, or brother cow. They'll go, well, I was reading this book. Well, I was talking to this guy. Or I'll tell you my theory. But the collective life itself does not deal in kamikaze information. Life, at the intellectual level, is not committing in any way verbal intellectual suicide. And so you will turn to life, see, because if life actually, what ordinary people like to call, what do they call it? The truth. If it's on that level, right quick, you know what I mean, ordinary people call it the truth, and you went to some aspect of life, some spokesman, you turned to somebody, and you said, I'd like to know the secret of life, do you know? And the person will go, got no idea. But no, we're talking about a good, reasonable spokesperson for life. You know, your priest, your rabbi, your uncle, the sane one, the one that doesn't drink so much. But you ask life itself. Sometimes I don't feel a purpose for life. Is there one? Oh, hey, hold on there. But if, as ordinary people call it, the truth, if life would tell the truth, if a priest, a rabbi, your mother, anybody would tell you the truth, as they call it, and you said, what's the secret of life? They would say, the church would say, Marxism would say, Republicanism would say, every institution, every human would say, hey, I got no idea. What are you asking me for? But that is not the way life operates. If you ask the collective, they've got an answer. And only the crudest sort would say, well, yeah, they got an answer, but it doesn't work. We know that. It's not the purpose of asking them. That's not their purpose in being here. We know that. Don't waste your time going, well, wait a minute, the answer is inoperative. That is the only kind of answer that is operative at that level. If it was operative, it would be suicidal. So, looking to the collective for usable escape information is sort of like seeking dental care from heavy equipment operators. Besides what humor that may have seemed to extract from some, consider, I'll give the writer a little credit, consider having delicate work done, which you would think from one viewpoint, what is intellectual activity, comparably speaking, if not precise and delicate. I mean, the difference in trying to hone your mind and trying to build up your thighs by doing deep knee bends with increasing amounts of weights on your back. Or something. Compared to that, no offense to anyone's thighs, except yours, sir. Pull your dress down. Compared to that, this would be delicate, precise, and so consider dental care with a continuing picturization instead of a delicate and precise dentist, which I hope everyone knows at least one. You have a man named Bubba who drives a caterpillar, a bulldozer. That does not strike anyone's bell that is the kind of precise information that you have been seeking. You can't see the institutions of life without any offense, as you know. The church, you can't see that as being a bulldozer. Any collective group, forget the herd now, think about it in a greater sense or in a different sense instead of a bunch of individuals. It has to be. Any institution that survives has to be like a heavy piece of equipment. It cannot be delicate. It can't be sensitive. Institutions aren't sissies. Institutions are not faint-hearted. They are not delicate. They are not precise. Which is a whole other story that I hate to get into, but it doesn't matter because we're not going anywhere until you die anyway. So, except maybe you, sir. I think you should go have your legs waxed. Well, I'm just going to point out institutions. When life starts something like a church, a new religion, a political system, even a culture, even a country, that seems to be a whole new, or a group of people are trying to reclaim or reestablish some boundary, and we're going to start a new country and we'll be called so. Whatever it is, and it becomes an institution. A living group of individuals that apparently are more than the individuals involved. It starts out being precise. It starts out, in a sense, being delicate. Just take any religion you want, what little you know of the so-called history of any religion, and it starts off, or a school of philosophy, it starts off apparently very delicate, very sensitive, with a reasonable, humane approach and intent that has a certain delicacy, a lightness to it, but a precision. That here's what we're after. And it sounds like, oh, well, finally something in life that's decent. Finally in life something that has a certain kind of joie de vivre, a certain kind of airiness, a certain kind of non-mundaneness. Give it a few years. And instead of it being a dentist, an oral surgeon with his nails done, nice lotion on, plenty of mouthwash, that institution very shortly will become a guy named Bubba driving a bulldozer. It has to. It has to. Institutions do not survive. An institution, one more time, in the greater sense. Cultures, nations, races, not just on the physical basis, but whole groups of collective people that consider themselves a cohesive unit or look to themselves that they should be, all the way from churches to nations. They've got to be bulldozers. If they do not become guys named Bubba very shortly, they're gone. Which we get more and more complicated, I know, which is one more reason that institutions. The news item was a few nights ago that said those who know the least, men who are the dumbest, like to dress up real fancy. Institutions must do the same thing. Because to live, they got to become Bubba and be bulldozers. But then you have got to have, just for everybody's sake, as part of being civilized, they have to appear to be otherwise. And so they dress up real fancy. And they do all the little things like cock their little finger when they drink tea. And they adopt certain moralistic and social rituals. But if you've got any kind of eye, you can look in all human institutions, you can look right behind them. Be some of the most beautiful buildings you have ever seen in your life. But right behind them, you can look right in through the stained glass windows, behind the columns. And right inside, you'll see this kind of hairy-looking face with a 5-day-old beard. And it's a guy named Bubba that drives a bulldozer. At least anyone, I don't think we'll go any further, but at least anyone take that again as being any sort of slam on them. Think about it another way. If you can see it, as always, like life needs your agreement to it, but you would be thankful to realize at the times you do need, if you did, any institution, all the way from the government, the police, whatever it is, the church. If you're ordinary and you can see it at all, you're thankful. Nobody wants to turn to an institution that turns out a bunch of sensitive wimps, the same as you. Because you wouldn't be turning to them to start with. So who wants to find out that, yes, I went here for help, and I find out, I told the police, well, come out, there's a man breaking in my house, and they go, oh, has he got a gun? We're not going to come out there. It's dark. Wait, call us in the morning. It's midnight. You say, You call her priest, could you come pray for my mother? She's dying, she's spitting up blood. And he goes, blood, oh, you know. Or a doctor, go to a hospital, you go in bleeding, and they go, oh, you know, get out of here, you're messing up the floor. That is not funny. Of course, you need to shift levels if you're going to make any more sense out of the news item of looking to the collective for usable escape information. It's sort of like seeking dental care from a heavy equipment operator. Once you recognize the collective for what it is, once you recognize all sources of information, whether it seems to be individuals or institutional information, then you understand that it has got to be bulletproof, it's got to be ironclad, and it has got to be, in a sense, a bulldozer operator named Bruno. So forget it. It will always be one man's head, even if it's institutional. And that is a terribly small place. But inside that small place, they have to run almost as though it were a bulldozer out of control. It does not have time. It cannot afford being in any way sensitive, even if it had the capacity. It cannot be thoughtful, not in any sense that is outside what is minimally required, even for the institution at that time and place. That's a job for who? Not Superman. Somebody else. But hint, look at that coincidence. Somebody else, and Superman starts with the same letter. God, even I write that down and give S. But then again, there's 2 or 3 other words start with S too. At the most basic level, backward genes seek similar company. And a man mused, yet another good reason that I shouldn't be hanging out with me. There was another item, I don't know whether it got pulled in here, that pointed out that it was labor news. I don't think they pulled it out. But it had to do with the fact that, by and large, people that do not know what they're doing and don't care, which is most everybody named Bruno, which is everybody that lives in the basement, it is the heart of humanity, they end up generally in charge of looking after the overall maintenance of the building, life. Then those who really don't know any more than that group, but are ticked off about not knowing. See, a guy's named Bruno, your Uncle Charlie's a bricklayer that drinks. Get him in a good mood, especially after a beer, a couple of shots, and say, you got an idea what life's about? He goes, you say, it never bothered you? You go, well, I don't know. They don't know and they don't much care. Those who don't know and do kind of much care, they end up wanting to organize everything. They end up wanting to have a platform, one way or the other. They're saying, all right, you people, why don't we unionize? Or, wait a minute, listen to me, I've got this great idea. And they go, yeah. And they hire, plus we have free beer later. And they go, okay, what? They've sort of moved out of the basement. They don't know anymore, but they don't like it. And so they want to get things whipped up, they want to get organized, and they want to be the spokesman for the rest of them. And the rest of them don't care, especially if they get a free beer or some free medical care. It's the way life is arranged. Now, within a short period, if you would jump from that into, God forbid, the great area of somewhere between metaphor and symbolism. At that most basic level, backward genes seek similar company. Where does everybody want to hang out? Well, we know where cows want to hang out, right? The old corral. We know where sheep want to hang out, right? Over at the old sheep corral. Where does everybody's brain want to hang out? More or less inside my own head. And if not mine, although they can't say it that way, but where we started the analyzation tonight, if not inside mine, inside somebody's. I don't want to be out there on the open range somewhere and the wind blowing and I don't know what's going on. Now, even though I get inside my own head and I'm not sure what's going on, if I get in somebody else's head, it'll be a lot better. It's like, well, my house is about to fall apart. The shingles are coming off, wind is blowing through the cracks in the wall, and you'll go over to somebody else's house, and if there was any objective way to gauge this, which of course there is, but if there was, let us say that the other person's house is not in any much better shape than yours. But don't it seem better? Well, somebody else is there for one thing. And if it's cold and windy and dank, the same as your house, at least somebody else is over there. Like you get inside their head, and I'm pushing it, but you know what I'm talking about. It's like you get inside their head and go, well, you know, when I'm at home alone, I don't know what the hell's going on. And you look at the person whose house you're in now, whose head, and they give you a look like, hey, I don't either. But they don't have to say anything, and you look at them and you go like, well, I know. And then you both sort of look at each other. And if not love, it's friendship. It's neighborliness. Friendship. Similar genes backward genes, seek similar company. People will, at the physical level, it's of no consequence, it's just simply the way life is, but you must see, at the physical level, there is still no great change in man. I mean, even just taking ordinary history. Kind of drawings, kind of descriptions. Let's just say, just from the Western view, a couple of thousand years, there's no great change physically in man. I mean, he's a little healthier and lives longer, I know all that, and he's a little taller, but man has got the same number of arms and fingers and toes. There has been no great change in man physically. It's also to the point, as you look around, that at the genetic level, the sexual reproduction of the race is not undergoing, obviously, any great shift, that people are not any more particular about who they screw. Life, obviously, and it's not people's doing, but life, obviously, does not have any kind of great need that people be selective, like, well, I might want to have a child, but that woman's nose, compared to mine, I mean, mine's bad enough, but if I have a child by her, I mean, that kid's nose is going to look like, you know, a tumor that slipped from the head. It's going to look like he's eating a bunch of bananas for the rest of his life, even, you know, he's asleep. That does not seem to be that concerned. That life does not have it, and therefore, of course, men do not have it. But what they do not even have any recognition of, that is not even taken into any consideration, is here. Not that they should, because that would come after physical, if it ever happened, would be this. But now, and we're not talking now, jump right quick, we're not talking about sexual reproduction, period. We're not even talking about intellectual reproduction. We're talking about you trying to reproduce yourself, trying to give birth to yourself in a new way during the period of time you got hanging around here. Then you're back to backward genes seek similar company. Now we're back to where we started. A man might agree that, yes, it's a terribly small place just to live in one man's head. Then why, may I ask, are you satisfied to do it? Yeah. Well, here you go. Well, I don't know. It seems kind of comfy. Backward genes seek similar company. Since we're running out, maybe we get crude. Why not? The dumb embrace the dumb. The stupid long for the stupid. And I know it's horrible to have to use terms like that, and I retract them all immediately. Backward genes. Cows seek only the company of cows. At best. And oftentimes they seek the company of a crippled cow. No. Well, who better to dance with? Now, we're talking intellectually now, not physically. Who better to dance with? Because if you're going to dance and you're going to try to lead, we're talking now, remember, intellectual, we're not talking physical, because now sex has nothing to do with it, other than sex still has something to do with it, but you got to work that out for yourself. If you're going to lead, and you're going to dance with another cow, one of the first things to do if you determine to lead is what? Pick out a cow that's smaller than you. Pick out a cow that's crippled. Pick out a cow that's short of horn. Pick out a cow that if you just go moo, it takes the cow a couple of seconds to think of a smart comeback. You say hello and it's stuck for an answer. Backward genes seek similar company. Well, I guess I gave you. Are we still? We're out of the audio. The video gone. Okay. Well, as all you people know, nah, assume if anybody else strange ever sees that, you know that the physical part has nothing to do. It's not us talking about that because life doesn't even care by and large, as I was trying to point out about the physical. In other words, man's not doing anything strange. Turning out children the same way that animals are turning out, it's obvious that things are going, just used to say, it seeks its own level. Except backward genes, backward thoughts, they don't just seek their own level. They seek nothing but their own level. At best, a man would say to himself, at best, I aspire, perhaps, to be as smart as I am. But I wouldn't guarantee that. Except this one guy, see, that was a part of this story, this news item, he was supposed to, I assume you call him, be non-standard. He is not just an ordinary person. This news item said, at the most basic level, backward genes seek similar company. And this one man, we'll assume a would-be thinker, he says, that's yet another good reason I shouldn't be hanging out with me. If I'm the best I can do, I think I'll do without friends. Here. This is it. And that is it if a man is satisfied with what life knows. Or dissatisfied with what life knows, which is the same thing. Because wherever it is, you're back to wrestling. You're back to wrestling with spotted-toed, pencil-necked geeks. If you're wrestling with ordinary intelligence, you cannot win. It can't be pinned. It will not be subdued. You remember that news item from tonight? And another guy thought, if you remember that same news item, and I'll suggest to you, again, a non-ordinary person, one guy thought, well, hell, even if they could be subdued or pinned, what would it accomplish? What it would do is make the whole arena collapse. If you could wrestle ordinary intelligence, if as ordinary people, as half the ordinary people believe half the time, everybody else is wrong, whatever idea it is you're confronted, and you could wrestle it down and whip it. Not just whip it, but make it, admit, I'm wrong. Make it see the light, which you can't do, but this one guy pointed out, wait a minute, even if you could, what would it do? You would not have accomplished a victory out there in the ring. You would not have the crowd standing up and cheering you on in the thrill of victory. If you could do it, you would suddenly hear strange noises and things would begin to shake. And forget Samson, forget the temple collapsing, everything would collapse. You cannot approve or disapprove. You cannot in any way whip up, straighten out, subdue backward genes, backward thoughts. They're not going to fight. And if they do fight, you can't win. Well, why is that? Well, how about the fact that they're in your head? Now, I don't know. A lot of it's out there. Yeah, I know. But what if it's all in a very small locale? Perhaps no smaller than, just maybe something like that. And inside of that, all of those backward genes, which are ordinary genes, now that's just us talking, they seek the company of similar genes. Anybody that's not intellectually trying to screw somebody that's better than they are, I don't know. I would just say, since you didn't ask me, I'd say you got the wrong idea thus far of intellectual lust. That's what I say. I could be wrong, and we'll check on it later. No, we won't. Yes, we will. No, we won't.